Before heading to the video, if you haven't subscribed the channel, do subscribe it and don't forget to click the bell icon for the latest update notification. If you like the video, do like, comment and share. Stay tuned with learnbay.co. Happy learning!
Now, so far we have done everything through Keras, TensorFlow and Keras basically. But I have been time and again, if you remember, I have been talking about something called PyTorch. And I have used PyTorch like for last 2 years, for almost 2 or 2.5 years now actually. So it was one of my friend introduced to me while I was in USA, and in January, I think they told me, January 2017, they told me that, dude, there is something by Facebook as well, and this is PyTorch. I was like, yeah, I know what Torch is, but what is PyTorch? So Torch is a very powerful neural network library. So first, let me tell you what Torch is. So Torch is a very powerful library, and it is meant for scientific computing. Okay, and the problem is it works with a language called Lua. Lua JIT means is compiler. JIT is just-in-time compiler. And of course, it can work with C because it has a Lua interface. But the problem is Lua is a scientific language. Not everyone knows this. Now, it was there for some time actually, and Facebook was internally using it anyways. Now, Somit, basically, who is at who was at NYU, now he's in Facebook research. Basically, Somit, and I think there is one another guy. Is it Clement or Ronan? I'm forgetting who is it exactly. Basically, they decided that what we can do is we can take the engine of Torch, which is really powerful and it was really fast at that time. Means still is. It's just that TensorFlow has got to the speed. TensorFlow was the one which was slower library. Torch was always the faster library, and this is why in scientific computer people were sticking with Torch. Now, what Somit thought is, and what they thought is, like, let's make a GitHub where we can attach a Python interface to Torch. And basically, Facebook funded that and adopted that as its own default as well. And now PyTorch, it basically gave the rise to PyTorch. Okay, so kind of this is funded by the way TensorFlow is kind of maintained by Google. This is maintained by Facebook now. Okay, and believe me, from the day one when I started working at that time, TensorFlow was very messy. Right now, Miss TensorFlow plus Keras has adopted so many ideas from PyTorch. To be very honest, things were not that's how you have looked at. It was much different. If you were to work in last year or 2 years before in TensorFlow, you would not have liked TensorFlow. Right now, TensorFlow and this doesn't make any difference. Now, PyTorch also works on almost all cloud platforms. So PyTorch will work on Google Cloud Colab as well. So I have kind of worked on both frameworks, and nowadays there is hardly any difference. So first of all, it doesn't matter too much which platform you go with. But if you would have asked me last year, I would have simply said, if you want to go with deployment, you have to use TensorFlow. But if you want to do scientific research or you want to just write good code for neural networks, you have to stick with PyTorch. Although that is not true from this year or last half of the last year, to be very honest. Both of them have become exactly similar. Okay, and even speed wise, TensorFlow has caught up. Now, most stable build I think is 1.5. I'm not sure I have 1.5 right now, but most stable build is 1.5, and it's very easy to install. It will kind of auto detect your system as well. And again, I will ask you to install now. PyTorch might not be by default installed on Colab, but just select Linux and just select the conda or pip install. Let's go with pip install and select Python, or now it is available for C++ and Java. Earlier it was not. And you just need to know your CUDA version. Usually 10.2 is good enough, and just a single line command. That's all it takes, and it will get it done. So as you can see, already I have installed it, so I'm not going to press this one. Pip install Torch and Torch Vision. Torch Vision is a separate library which is meant for CV or uh, computer vision problems. But majorly we have to deal with Torch, okay? And fundamentally, what is PyTorch or what is Torch? PyTorch is basically a Python package that provides two high-level features. One is tensor computations. What is a tensor?
So basic element, right, in that framework, TensorFlow framework.
TensorFlow framework. Oh, no, fundamentally, what is tensor? It's the definition wise, I just asked you. Yes, I've explained tensor, right?
Yeah.
What was tensor?
Vector.
No, come on. Why would you say vector? Like I already explained you this part. Okay, tensor is just a very fancy word for multidimensional array. Okay, so the rank of tensor defines what would be the array dimensionality. So a rank 0 tensor is
Constant.
Scalar. Scalar.
very good.
Scalar.
So rank 0 tensor is, it means it has no dimensions. So it is scalar. So this is 5. Rank 1 tensor is a vector. Vector is one dimensional, either row or a column vector. So let's say 1, 3, 7, 9. Okay. What is rank 2 tensor? 2-dimensional, a normal array, 2D array, of course. What is rank 3 tensor? A 3D array, and so on, so on, so on. So basically you can have any rank dimension. So basically, as you can see, your data dimensionality could be pretty huge. So you require a generic idea, and this is called tensor, which is used, this term is used in physics. So basically it provides tensor computation very similar to NumPy or what TensorFlow is providing with strong GPU acceleration. Yes, it will work with GPU as well. And deep neural networks are based on tape-based autograd system. What is the autograd system? We have talked about this.
Yes. Automatic gradient calculation.
Exactly, automatic gradient calculation. Tape-based means sequential. So layer by layer means, of course, it cannot also jump forward and layer. It will go layer by layer. So tape-based means first the output layer, then the second last layer, then the third last layer, and so on and so on. Now, because it is completely in Python, you can use Python packages. You can use NumPy SciPy, or you can put Cython, Jython, or anything to extend PyTorch with any other language when needed. So Cython is an interface with C, I think. So it can interface with C as well. So within PyTorch also C++ and Java is provided. So you can also apply through PyTorch as well. So you do not need to use Cython. I think so. The latest stable version is 1.5 now. Okay. So what are the features here? We have a GPU ready tensor library. It's very similar to Andy array of NumPy. Okay, there is not much difference here. Almost all the operations which you can do on NumPy can be done on these tensors as well. And the best thing is, which has also been implemented in Keras, you can directly feed a NumPy array. You do not need to convert into any internal type. It will do it automatically. Okay, so you want to do any operation, mathematical operation, which is a very standard operation right now, which you can see. You can do it. Now you have a dynamic neural network that is a tape-based autograd. So usually earlier, now this is not even true for TensorFlow. Earlier you had to build a whole neural network and you had to use the same structure again and again. Okay, if you would change the neural network anytime, you will have to restart the training. Now with Torch, it was the first time it was put. It was, the idea is called the graph, or whatever you are creating, it would be created on the fly. Okay, so it was not like the whole thing has to compile first and then only the graph is created. As you start writing the code, it would create it. Now with the eager execution of TensorFlow, TensorFlow has done the exact same. So now there is not much difference. But a year back, this is what the difference. That this was dynamic, that was a static graph. But with eager execution, now they are into dynamic graphs as well. But as you start writing line by line, you can start creating graphs, and you do not have to write the whole code to initiate the whole graph. Although when you do it like that, it is faster. I hope you remember that example. In TensorFlow, we have taken that example. Anyone remembers that? When you will put a decorator called graph, what happens?
Changes from static to dynamic.
No, sorry. You just said the reverse thing actually. When I will write the graph term, what will happen over there? So by default, it is eager execution. What you are seeing here, that you write one line of code or two lines of code. the graph is created, or it is dynamically created. So as you keep writing the more code, it is a dynamic addition. Problem with dynamic addition is every time it has to check what has been added. So in execution time, it is slower, slightly slower. Okay. So when you will make it a static graph, or when you will define the graph, compile it, and then run the code, it runs faster because it doesn't has to keep checking what it is, because it knows it is will be the same structure. So that reduces a small amount of overhead. Now this was the default feature in PyTorch, but even here you can define the graph, you can put initializers, constructors and everything, and then later run the whole code. Okay. So what is the advantage due to that? Again, faster. Once you define the graph and once you compile it, it knows the graph is not going to change at all. It will run faster. Now, the biggest problem I had with TensorFlow, especially my different problem, is it was not Pythonic, to be very honest. TensorFlow in its own form is not Pythonic. It had too many rules and that didn't record of Python as of Python. But with PyTorch, I have never found this problem ever. You can almost attach any Pythonic library with PyTorch. You can have exact similar coding style as Python. Okay. And you have almost all the flexibility of Python. Now in default TensorFlow, this flexibility was not available earlier. Now it is. From version 2.0, they have made a massive rechange. And again, it is designed to be intuitive, so there is not much of a problem. If you put a debugger, error, so you can just find it in normal debugger. Okay. So there is not much. So in TensorFlow, it is highly nested, but in PyTorch, it is very easy. Like you can directly come to know this line is causing the whole issue. Now, PyTorch has a minimal framework overhead. That is actually true. The installation files are although now pretty big, but earlier they were like really small. And you can have acceleration with Intel MKL or NVIDIA. Mostly we go with NVIDIA, CUDNN and NCLL and CCL, sorry. So maximize the speed. And PyTorch is quite fast, guys. When you run small or large neural networks, doesn't really matter. A year ago, TensorFlow was like I'm not sure what was the metric, but it was like half slower, like means like more than 1/2 or some speed there was speed difference. And with large neural networks, sometimes it would matter in terms of minutes, like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, there was difference. That same network you train in PyTorch and same network you train in TensorFlow, earlier the difference could be 15 minutes. Now that difference is in seconds practically. So not much of a difference these days. Okay. And again, as I just said, it has a PyTorch Tensor API, which can be integrated with anything, NumPy, SciPy. You just talk about any tool, any language like C, C++, there is an API available already, and it will extend to any other language. So there is not much you have to do here. Okay, and it's pretty good actually. And the code is very clean. It is highly Pythonic. So person who likes Python will automatically, it's just my bet, they always tend to like PyTorch as well. So how do you run the whole thing? It's very simple. You just have to import Torch and the whole thing is live. You don't have to do much. So let's say we import NumPy as NP, and then we import Torch as well. Now remember, torch.tensor is an alias for default tensor type, torch.float tensor, let's say. So let's say you pass a small tensor. Now you don't have to do this. Remember this, guys. It will be internally taken care of it anyways. Even if you do not convert anything to tensor, it takes care of it. Okay, you can just directly pass numpy arrays. So this is a tensor type, as you can see, and it might remind you everything of TensorFlow that we are doing. And of course, you can pass a direct numpy array as well. Same functions like zeros, ones, and everything is available. One thing you can do is you can choose the device directly and you can initialize this tensor directly on the device itself. So it will not take RAM memory, it will directly take the memory of video graphics card. Now it will take some time because it is internally initializing the device. But once it is done, it is pretty fast after that. So now you can see the device is CUDA. So by default, this array is not on my RAM actually. It is actually on the video RAM. Okay. So you can choose and do this as well. And same idea, guys, any kind of slicing, any kind of indexing operation is exactly same what you would achieve in NumPy. So there is not much difference. You can choose to do anything, any slicing that you can do in NumPy is also applicable here.
Thanks. What is this CUDA 0?
CUDA 0 is the default graphics card that is available to us. You want to see which
Like
graphics card we have? On Colab, of course.
Okay.
Okay. So by default, if you import torch, you can call torch.cuda current device. So it will be 0. 0 doesn't mean there is no device. Okay. It means there is a device on location 0. Okay. So if you want to see what is the device name, so this is the memory address of that device. If you
There
want
could
to
be multiple CUDA.
Yes, of course,
devices.
but the Colab only allows you single graphics card at one point. So you can get a device count. So yes, if you have multiple cards, it will show you 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. If you want to get your device name exactly, it will tell you the device name as well. Tesla T4 is right now live. Now Google Colab keeps swapping it. So you might get a different card. I will get a different card. But let's say if you have a dedicated card, you will get to know the name of your card. And if it is available, yes or no, true. So true means it is available. Okay. So you can check which device you are live with. So remember how to select that, right? You just have to make sure GPU is selected and it will be live as well. Clear?
So suppose there is a multiple CUDA devices. In that case, we have to initialize it?
Not initialize it, man. Mostly, okay. So in earlier
like you did,
so,
right?
No, that was specific. No. So what did I do here is I ensured that this array will not get stored on my RAM. Rather, it will just get stored on the memory of graphics card. That might not be required by you. Okay. So you can, okay. So even if I would not give it, if I just were to write GPU or CUDA, it would directly specify. But yeah, if you have multiple cores, if you have multiple cards, then let's say you want to store it on the second card, then you would have to write the number 1. But because there is no second card, if I pass, it will throw an error. Okay, so I cannot throw it on CUDA 1. But let's say you had a second card and you wanted to store it on that second card. So you will just write CUDA colon 1 and that as a string, and that will be storing it on the second card. Okay. So yes, you can work with multiple cards and in parallel, there is no problem with that. And if you have a single value, you can use the torch tensor.item to get that exact result. And there is something called automatic differentiation or autograd. What is that? It's a simple idea. So you first have to do the graph. Let's say you make a graph. Let's say out is x.pow2 and whatever the sum is. Okay. So how does this work? So what is out exactly as a mathematical equation? Okay. So what would be the differentiation of this?
2x.
Very good. So if I were to just take x square and do a dx, what would be the answer? Okay, am I right? Okay, so look at it very carefully. You just have to make sure requires grad is true here in this tensor. Now what you will do is we will take out and we will come up with the equation. Then we will print out. So the forward pass has happened because to print out it needs to do this first. Okay, then you do out dot backward. What it will take care of? Now there is a backward pass and then you will come up with x dot grad. This x dot grad will give you the gradient. Okay, so this gradient will be outputted, will be given as okay. What would be the output here? Can anyone tell me? what would be output here? So this is your array. So apply this function and tell me the output.
4 only.
Yeah, because if you square every one of them, it becomes all positive, and 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 4, which is the output if you see here. Okay, but what about if I take this function and if I put a gradient here, whatever, with respect to whatever, let's say. So what I will get back?
2x. So
2x
2 minus 2.
2 into 1. So basically you will get 2 2 2.
This should be sum
sorry,
of 2x,
sorry,
right?
sorry, minus is also there, sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
It should be sum of 2x, right?
Sorry.
Oh, we are differentiating power of sum of power, right? So it should give sum of x.
But that is a vector representation, right? So okay, once you take it in scalar, it cannot give you out any gradient. I hope you understand that part, right? So you have to have the vector representation. So sum is there, but look, on sum you cannot have a gradient. Okay, anyone did the differentiation, right? You guys have taken differentiation, right, in life? So
yes,
you know what happens.
0. Yeah.
Not 0. What happens if, look, there is a gradient or some kind of gradient? You know this sum can be ignored altogether. If there is a summation, you can just take out the summation. It doesn't really matter to us. You can have your vector or whatever fx is there, and you can directly do this. Agree? This you can do. You do not have to worry about summation. Remember? Because once you do the summation, it will become a scalar, and then it has no value to us. So you can take out the sum and negative. Both doesn't really matter. So, okay, you can just take the summation sign out, and you can internally do the differentiation. Because once you do the sum, then it has no value. Means it becomes scalar, and you cannot actually get the gradient over there. We need to deal in vectors or collection of vectors. So even if there is a sum, and you are right, there is a sum, but what my point was, it won't matter right now because differentiation can go step by step. Okay, so what will happen? Let's say d dou negative 1 squared. So if you do this, what will be the output? You will get a tensor of
Please print after x grad, print out.
Why will it change out? Like we have done nothing. Okay.
What I'm thinking.
Okay,
Let's change it.
This is it. So what happens?
Oh, it's not changing.
Nothing will happen. Why will it change out? The process of out has not been changed at all. You have just did a backward pass. So remember, in backward pass only W or the differential changes. It will not, you understand, it will not change the forward pass at all. Whatever happened in forward pass happened. You cannot, okay, when you are doing backward pass, it doesn't mean you are reversing anything. You are just doing error correction. It doesn't changes the flow of data at all. So why would it change out? There is no point that out will ever get changed. If you were to run a next iteration based on the gradient, then based on the gradient change, your output can change. But right now we are just going one step. We are not running a neural network as of now. Okay, you understood what requires grad is or not requires grad. Basically, you have to take this backward pass, and then you just need to calculate the grad, which is the gradient. Let me show you a slightly bigger example. Okay. So this is my function. What does this function remind you of?
Forward pass.
Yeah, it's a
line equation.
Yeah, it's a line equation. Forward pass, you can also think. Okay. Now tell me, what would be the gradient with respect to x, w and b of the same pass? Because you can take different gradients, right? So I'm asking that give me the answer of dy by dx, dy by dw and dy by db. Come on, tell me the answers right now. It's easy enough. You have the value as well.
First is 2, second is 1.
Okay, how did you calculate that? First is 2. So you
Yeah,
did
so,
dy by dx.
so it will give W.
W is 2.
W is 2.
X is the variable, so X will remain as it is. Plus B is 3.
B will be 0.
Eh? No, okay, go step by step. Let's go step by step. Okay, what will happen? How the differentiation takes place?
It will give 2.
It will return you what? Basically 1. So 2 plus 0 is 2. Correct? Okay, now do dy by dw. So whenever which is the variable, you do not put the value for that, and rest of them
It will give
are have to.
X. It will give
now
X,
what would
that is
be
1.
Okay, how would the equation look like? W into X is 1, of course, plus B is again 3, and I'm asking you to do dw. So answer would be 1.
1.
What would be the output of dy by db? So again, the b is the variable now. So w we know the value already. So what is the value of w? 2 into 1 plus b. Then you want to do db. So what would be the output?
0.
Sorry?
1.
1.
1.
Of course, man, come on. Like b differentiated by b would be 1, right? What is the confusion here? Okay, fine. You understood? This is how the maths will work. So if I were to execute it, what would be my output? 211, and I have also put that in comments so that no one gets confused. Make sense? Okay. This you guys will tell me. I will not show you the answer. So I hope you already understand everything. This basics you have to understand. Okay. Tell me what will happen here. Means we are just building on top of that. So first we took a linear hypothesis. Now let's build the linear hypothesis. So x and y are two arrays. One array or tensors are shape of 10 to 3 and 10 to 2. Okay, 10 to 2. X is your input, y is your output. And let me build a fully connected layer. I will explain you what are the layers and everything, don't worry. So linear layer means dense layer, basically, nothing else. Okay. So in linear layer, this is the equation x a to basically transpose plus b. So a is your basically your weights over there, but we will take our terminology as w and b. So linear dot weight and linear dot bias. Okay. So how will you go for the forward pass? So what basically I want you to get is how would the backward pass look like? So basically this is what we need to know with compared to loss. Let's say with some criterion, some loss criterion is what here? It is a MSE loss and I have a SGD running here. So I will get a loss and I will want to get out the gradients. Okay. And then again, you can see there is an optimizer and there is a step function that I will explain you a bit later. And this is what is going to happen, guys. So once I run this, so this is W and B. We have just run it for one step. Okay. We have not run it in a loop. So it will just do it once and it will stop. Now see what happens. So this is a good visualization. So remember your linear regression example where we had this Wx plus or W1 plus X plus W0. Okay. So these are your initial values. These are W values and this is your bias, okay? And this is your overall loss. This is MSE loss, by the way. Now, what is this and what is this? Can anyone tell me?
So gradient
Gradient. So what we will do with the gradient?
equals to W minus
Sorry,
gradient.
yeah. So you will take this W tensor minus or equal to W minus, come on,
Gradient.
Alpha.
alpha. Of course, you are doing SGD, right? Do not forget your basic stuff. See, right now we are assuming we can do it ourselves by 0.01. So we can take some values of alpha, no problem. And the gradient. So gradient is again an array. So what will happen with this one? Again, it will be element to element. Remember this part. So just for one element, if I wanted to do, so the update will look like 0.0115. There is a double minus, so it will basically become plus. Let's take alpha value as some small value. Okay, and now what else I have to do here? Come on.
X
What?
into X.
Into X. Now, unfortunately, we do not know I can print the values out, but there would be X value. So basically this will be update of, let's say, W00. Let's call it W00. This is the update we are trying to do. So in one step, W00 will get updated. Similarly, in parallel, all of the tensors and all of the biases will get updated. And basically they have tried to calculate loss again after one step optimization. And you can see, compared to the original loss, this was without running anything. You have a small, very small improvement. Make sense? So this was like a basic linear regression that we just tried to show you. Okay guys, so let's stop till here, and in the next session coming Saturday, we will try to take, first we will finish the whole thing. I will explain you all the basic modules, parameters, layers, what kind of, and same, most of the stuff is very similar, so you will not find too much time. And there is a special, it's a class, it's a more object oriented way of creating a network, which I personally like. And rest of the stuff is more or less similar. Okay, you have to choose a criteria and you have to choose your optimizers and everything, so you will realize that a lot of stuff is very, very same, so it doesn't changes that much. Okay, so we will cover this, we will take some examples with PyTorch, and then we will also have a discussion about your projects. Okay.